thanks, Miranda. We have come full circle. Miranda, as she alluded to, we've known each other for many years. She's really gone down an impressive path with Austin Animal Care and now with Every Dog Austin. And the mission is just unbelievable of inclusive, accessible dog training. So I'm really thrilled for her and for the community and to be here. I don't know Michelle and Eric who work with her, but I'm hoping I get to meet them someday too. So, learning, training, and playing through games. So, how did I really come into doing this? Sorry, I'm playing around a little bit with my computer. We started switching around our curriculum last year during COVID. I think it was a year of, hey, let's question everything. So we kind of went to majority game-based training, and we do it with our individual clients. We do it through classes, and we started seeing some pretty amazing results faster than we would with just kind of basic training. And I'm not sure if this is because people think playing games is more fun than training, or if the dogs just had more fun, or maybe it's both. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about me and sort of where my bias is. I started my career working for a vet behaviorist. So yes, I see things through the applied behavior analysis lens, but there's always been a part of me looking for what emotion is happening. And it's so fascinating that we can't read their minds, but we know they're just thinking away. So I wanted to talk about games and the results that we're seeing. And I have tons of video that I'm going to show. So I want to get on to that. And I tried to base everything I'm saying in science, and I found studies and went down that rabbit hole. And I know Miranda can attest to, once you start going down, looking at research, you just come up with more. So I'm hoping that I am not misspeaking, but I did pull from a lot of science or scientific studies that have really been validated. So yes, Miranda and I met back in Maryland. I've done a lot of sheltering experience. And as I said, I was a patient coordinator. Whoops. Bear with me here. I'm also on the board of directors for the Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers. And I'm just putting my plug in there because it's an independent verification certification. And there's actually 2 states right now, New Jersey and Massachusetts, who have legislation about regulating and licensing dog trainers. So we are now involved in that. So it's always a good certification to look for when trying to choose a dog trainer. So I don't do this alone, and I have to give a big shout out to the team. So I have Christina Folkers, who is a KPA, and she's also a CPDT, which is all these alphabet soup, but has several certifications and lives with a stressy German Shepherd. Justine, who is also in the same program that Miranda is at Virginia Tech, also lives with a stressy German Shepherd. And some of the newer members are Peyton Winter. She's a certified professional dog trainer and shares her home with Viago, a stressy dog, may have some shepherd, we don't know. And Tara Murtagh, who's from actually, not from there, but worked at Austin Pets Alive. So she knows the Austin area very well. And she's also, besides a certified professional dog trainer, a certified professional behavior consultant, which I missed spelled there. You guys are also my test audience for this presentation, so I'm apologizing in advance. A little bit about Dog Latin, besides going game-based. We were voted as one of the top pet care providers from Washingtonian Magazine, so we're very thankful for that. You can find us on social media, Facebook and Instagram, to see what we're up to. We post a lot of client videos. Whoops, going backwards again. So our philosophy, big philosophy, is all dogs are individuals. Although we use a lot of the same games and approaches, we have to look at each dog, and we also have to look at their environment and come up with a training plan for each client. You can also find these handouts, infographics that we've done with Lily Chin. We're really proud of those. Those are on our free website. It just gives free advice for anyone looking for behavior advice, and these are downloadable, and obviously you can share them. So yes, we believe in decompress for success a lot, especially with new dogs coming into the home. Oh gosh, I just keep going backwards, sorry. A big one that we try to embrace every day is find our moment of yes during the day. Yes gives more information to a dog than no. No might stop a behavior, but it doesn't really tell a dog what to do. And so the little, sorry, I'm moving my screen around. The little Sealyham Terrier, the little white dog, is based on my dog, Frankie there. But a lot of times dogs give us that moment, and it is just a moment, like their head lifts, and right before they're going to bark or react, we can get that moment of yes in. Oops, sorry. And we also have Upgrade to First Class, just talks a little bit about how to make some husbandry task or other things your dogs may not like, how to make it a little bit better. So, sorry, I'm trying to. So here's a little philosophy for you. I had to show this clip because we hardly ever get to work with Afghan hounds anymore. All right, so the presentation is in 5 parts. We're gonna breeze through this part. I just wanted to talk about marker basics. That's how we teach the games. And so I feel like it will be helpful for you to know that. Then we'll talk about rewards. We'll get to the games, and you can see all the learning happening. And we'll talk about some real world situations and how the games were used there. And at the end, something that I found super fascinating, the discussion of fast play versus slow play. So marker basics. Many of you may use a verbal marker or a clicker. What we're doing is pinpointing an instant, a behavioral instant. Once the dog knows the role of the marker, it's like saying yes. And sometimes that could be your verbal marker, the yes. It's also is a promise of conveying a reward. And the marker really explains to the dog what you're looking for. It's such a clear form of communication. And I know every dog, Austin does this in their classes.
So one more time, present the hands. Good girl. And we're not adding a verbal cue quite yet because we're just.
So you can see in that video, we were just getting the behavior of backing away. And then Christina clicked, which gave Lucia, the Dalmatian, information. That's what you wanted me to do. When I leave that hand, I get a reward. So the basics, we're just watching for the behavior. We're using our marker, whether it's a word or a clicker, and we are reinforcing in some way, usually food at the beginning because it's biological. We don't have to teach dogs to like that.
So one more time.
Whoops. You are guys are going to be like so sick of me by the end of this of going the wrong way. So here's a puppy, Argo, learning. And this was, he just learned nose targeting. So clear to him, right? And that's some great timing from his mom. So we're going to talk about touch because touch can become a basis for a lot of the games. And I love marker training because it makes us actually pay attention to our dogs. It's very precise. It's very clear to them. And we also like to just reward our dogs and tell them what works rather than saying no. And we have to kind of be success thinkers when we're working with our dogs. How do we set them up for success? Do we train at 5 p.m. in our apartment hallway when everybody's moving around? Probably not if your dog has a focus issue or you're trying to build attention. So we're always trying to think how do we get our point across and make it successful to our dogs?
Cracker, Petunia's just staring at. Yeah, good. Well, let me see.
So here's one of our classes. It's FLY, which stands for focus, leash skills, and impulse control. And that's really kind of geared to the owner, not the dog, but no, really both. So here you'll see, I'll play it again. We're just marking for any time Tucker checks in. It's a focus exercise we're doing in class. And she is a teenager and actually had never done clicker training, but is so fabulous. So again, we just kind of breeze through that. So rewards, this is kind of the rabbit hole that I went down with this presentation is I kind of wanted to, oh, there I go again. Then I missed it. So I don't know if any of you listen to many podcasts, but one of my favorite is Learning About Dogs with Kay Lawrence, a trainer based out of the UK. And she got me turned on to investigating Wolfram Schultz and the research he's done on the brain. So I don't want to bog you down with this, but I think it's a really good point to look at that he learned. He started studying dopamine in hopes of getting better information on Parkinson's disease. And during the research, they found that dopamine neurons were coming being activated in the reward process in different parts of the brains that they never knew had experienced that. So he also kind of discovered that the brain not only detects and analyzes past events, but it can start, that it will also construct and modify predictions about future events. So I think what he is saying here is all about anticipation, that it goes way beyond the click or marker word and the reinforcer, that there's a lot happening during that time between those two things. And I think that's really important in learning. And you'll see it when we start to play the games, how the anticipation is so evident in some of the dogs. So let me get to, so here. So he also talks about that it's more beside, it goes beyond the cue and the reinforcer, right? So he likes to call the whole process the reward predicting stimuli. And we all know this, right? Here are two dogs. Owner comes home, they hear the lock beginning to jingle. They're like, yay, you know, mom and dad are home. So that is what he's referring to. So all these dopamine neurons that are happening in the reward process, he says that they're little devils in our brain. So yes, if things go awry, that's when we're seeking out the higher calorie foods. We may have some other bad habits of smoking, but yes, it's all due to these dopamine neurons.
We like to do it with people.
So another reward predicting stimuli in class, the whole process of being in class, the crinkling of a bag. Mandu can't take his eyes off his owner there. It was like cheese is the best. So it's a little bit to think about that it's more than just the click and treat. It's that state of expectation that you'll start to see in some of the dogs. And again, it's all about the anticipation. And this was from a recent, well, not too recent paper, but his work back in the 80s, 90s, and then early 2000s have really shaped the way that science is looking at the reward system in our brain. So let's keep going. So again, the reward predicting stimulus, it's more than just the cue and the marker, and it's blending a lot of things here. Some of you might know about classical and opera conditioning, and the question is, does the anticipation of a game become a reward predicting stimulus? I think it does. So that is Hugo. He is just under a year old there, a Chow Chow. He loves to play games, and you're going to see him later playing a game that tells us, yes, put my muzzle on. Yes, brush me. So as I mentioned, Kay Lawrence, wonderful trainer, coach, dog coach, human coach in the UK. I love this quote: anything that is a reward predicting stimulus can serve as a marker. And that's how we build behavior change. So yes, toddlers learn to eat because they see the food, and it's a reward predicting stimulus, and they learn to start to use utensils. So during all this thought about play and games, I kind of wanted to know, like, do we know what's going on in a dog's head? You know, when we play games, or we train, or we're just hanging out with them. I mean, I think we sometimes think we know, and we could be right, but this is what science tells us. So I don't know if anyone has heard of, or maybe you've read, he's written a couple books, Gregory Burns. He has written, let me look at his How Dogs Love Us. That came out like early teens, like 2013, but it was a New York Times bestseller. And What It's Like to Be a Dog, that came out more recently, like I think 2017, 18. He has been he's from Emory. He's a distinguished professor of neuroeconomics at Emory. And he's been doing a lot of studies of dogs' brains, and they actually put the dogs in an MRI. Not sedated. They do this amazing training to be able to do that. But I like some of the things he says about the dog's brain. that they are special, right? They have evolved living with us, so they are more socially compatible with humans than any other animal. And as I said, they train the dogs, they did not sedate them, and it's amazing to watch that. So some of the things he's talking about with the brain, which I think is good before we get into the games, to kind of keep in mind that they have a large olfactory system. They have 2 olfactory systems, and it compromises about 2% of their total brain weight. So that's important because it's a whole different sense than we use, and it's really a predominant sense for dogs. So we need to keep that in mind when we play the games. Whoops. Their frontal lobes, which in humans occupies 1/3 of our brain, is only 10%. So frontal lobe is much smaller in dogs. Frontal lobe is controls a lot of our daily functions. It compares objects. It builds memories, manages attention, and most of the dopamine, those happy chemicals, are contained in the prefrontal cortex, and that's sort of the CEO of dogs' brains. And our brains and dogs' brains are similar in structure. It's just dog brains are smaller. What was really interesting in this study, like when they were putting the dogs, training them to go into the MRIs, they would present the dog with a toy, and it was sometimes or it might have been just even pieces of cloth. I'm not exactly sure, but anyway, each thing was swiped with a scent, so it was consistent, whatever they used, and it was a scent of another dog, the owner, and there were another dog, some owners. They also had an unfamiliar person. Anyway, what they found was some of the dogs, the brain activity in the dogs were more responsive and elicited the greatest activation from the scent of their owner. So there's some powerful stuff going on, and I think that's another case to play games because of that strong bond that we have. And here it is. It's the scent of the owner elicited the greatest activation in the reward system of a dog's brain. That's pretty interesting and super cool. So one of the things he also mentions in his research, that there's growing evidence suggests that dogs suffer a lot of the same mental disorders as people. So I wanted to address that because I come from this perspective of seeing emotions in dogs since my career started with a vet behaviorist. And most people bring their dogs to a vet behaviorist when there are a lot of issues, behavior issues going on caused by fear. And we'll leave it at that because I want to stay in my lane about we can't make diagnoses, only a vet behaviorist can make diagnoses. So that's an important point to remember. So here's the fun part. Let's look at some of the games, why you all came. So we're going to just start with touch. So I know that's a simple nose targeting behavior. All the dog has to do is touch his nose to the palm of your hand. Oh, wait, I might have missed one here. No, okay. So here's in class, Wrigley's mom had mentioned he has a hard time paying attention to her in distracting environments, yet he does pretty well here. Oops, is this gonna let me play? Oh no. And for some reason that is not loading. Let's see. Oh. Let me give it a second and we'll see. So she really upgrades the game here by not just doing touch. She's going to do multiple touches. Wow, don't know why this isn't loading. All right, let's see. Oh no, please don't tell me my videos aren't loading. Here we made touch into a game of circle of touch. All right, let me see. Did I? Oh, come on. Load. So what's going on here, we're actually using it in counter conditioning and desensitization to a neighbor's dog. Oh, here it goes. Oh no. There is a Great Pyrenees puppy that's in a lower part of the fence on the side who just wants to be a Pyrenees and watch this little dog, and was driving this little dog nuts. So we actually use the circle of touch. So I'm gonna maybe see if there's something I can do to make these load. Sorry, I'm gonna try to exit and go back in to the program.
Winter, touch. Winter, touch.
All right, so.
Winter,
There we go.
Touch. Winter, touch.
So they got the family out there, and this little dog had just learned touch. Great recall cue, right? But instead of barking and carrying on with the Great Pyrenees, it was on the other side. You can't see, I didn't shoot that side of the fence. He's just peering over and looking at this dog. And this dog was just not having it. So here we go with Wrigley.
Good job, buddy.
He's like, that was a lot of fun. No focus issue there. So I call touch the little black dress of behaviors because it just fits in everywhere. And you can make it into so many different games. And there's so many uses for it. So you can get creative. So here is Hugo again, and he was actually, oh gosh, he actually nose targeted, I'll play it, it's just a fast little clip, the scissors. Again, we made that a game, touch the scissors, touch the brush, touch the muzzle. Yay, it's a lot of fun, and it really helped him with handling issues.
Cookie, come!
So here's another game. We call it the Twofer Game because it really helps in not only getting your dog to come to you, but it establishes 4 on the floor too, meaning not to jump. I don't really care if dogs sit or stand. I'm not an obedience competitor by any means. And I feel like this dog, for example, Cookie, it's a male. He does not like to sit. So all we're doing with the Twofer Game is I'm tossing a piece of food. I'm not sure if you could see it. He runs to get the food. As his shoulder is turning, I try to cue him toss the food, look at his shoulder. His shoulder turns. I put his recall cue in, and I started to say yes as he was approaching me. And I would feed him low, and he got to the point where he was just like, yeah, okay, I can stand in front of you. So that's a super easy game. You can sit with kibble, some dog treats, you're tired, you have some space, you can get a lot of repetitions in a minute. Here's another recall game. It's called With Me. I think it's really fun for the dogs because it's a chase game, and it can be a really fun game for puppies. And it's a lot easier because I think because for them to figure out, because our bodies and our feet are facing the way we want them to go. So we'll take a look here. Please load. Oh, yay.
With me.
So what the owner is doing here to teach this game is he dropped a piece of food. You see him dropping, and he starts to run away.
With me.
He's saying with me, and he marks with a clicker. He's using clicker versus a marker word as the puppy is moving towards him, but feeding right at his side. So the puppy comes there each time. And we usually do this for a couple of repetitions before we add the with me cue. So here we go. We drop the food.
With me.
So the order was a little bit screwed up. We should probably say with me first and click, but you get the idea. He's a brand new owner for a puppy owner and clicker training, but I thought he did a great job. So here's another with me. This was Pepper. They were having a very difficult time getting Pepper to come in the home, and it's a funny setup in their home in the district in Washington, D.C. that the dog had to kind of go up 2 flights of outside steps. And because Pepper had, I think, such fun and releasing dopamines when all this was going on, this turned into a really good recall cue, and they were able to get her up the steps, no issues. Oops, maybe I could play it. Maybe I have to say like a please load prayer before every. Oh, come on, please load. All right, maybe I'll come back to that. That seemed to work the last time. Oh no, they're all doing that. So we were playing the with me game with this little standard poodle puppy, strengthening the behavior, coming to her person's side each time. They live in an apartment, and they were trying to navigate hallways. And of course, some of the residents didn't enjoy puppies, so she really wanted to be able to navigate the hallways and keep her puppy's attention. So let me just try to go back out of this and see if I can load it again. That seemed to be what worked the last time. So this is without using the cue. She was just teaching that she would, but you see how close she's feeding to her side. And food placement is so important with with any behavior and with these games, because it's going to teach Ruthie, the puppy, to come there each time. And she was using it too at the end of walks. Let's see if we can get
Drop the
Pepper.
treat.
Here we go. So she drops the food.
Stay with me.
And she walks away real fast. Pepper enjoyed this game so
treat.
much.
Stay with me.
And then again, she's feeding at her side. That, as I mentioned earlier, it really helped solve the problem of her coming inside. So let's see. Oh, so play. So there's actually a National Institute for Play. This is a quote about human play, but it does seem to spread some joy and make everything happier. And this was actually a scientific study by two researchers, Brown and Vaughn, on how play shapes the brain. And the paper was super interesting, but this was really one of the good points of it, that it can really, I don't know, just have a positive effect, I think, on some dogs who are suffering from some anxieties about the world around them. And some of you who have probably taken psych classes in college know about Jaak Panksepp. I'm probably saying it wrong. He was also known as the rat tickler. He started in his research playing with rats, and they would make a vocalization sound, and he was wondering if they were laughing. And so would they play if they removed part of the brain that, and they did. So he removed the brain in mice, not primates, and they found that they would still play. So it must be coming from a really primitive part of the brain. And so his theory is that it must be critical for survival, that dogs, animals are learning a lot in play. And they're also learning a lot of social skills. So here's one called Cheese Ball Recall. Deacon is a very sweet dog. He is calm. He does not move super quickly. And his owner is moving quicker than Deacon. But let me explain this game.
So we're starting out by clicking.
We're tossing an actual cheese ball. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can see it there. Some of them are bright orange, which dogs really don't see orange, but it can be helpful for people. We pulled this from a book.
Starting out by clicking.
It's from Jane Killian, called When Pigs Fly. And I love this game because, especially in class, the cheese ball actually serves as a good, I don't know if it's a distractor, but dogs are more activated by motion, their sight. So it gives them something to do and they chase it. And so you're kind of running with the dog, making this a fun activity. And then he eats the cheese ball and you run the other way and you click them for coming to you. Deacon, actually, I'll play this again. So Anne throws the cheese ball. He eats it. She's waiting for to look up to be like, yeah, let's run. And Deacon's like, I don't know about the running part, but cheese balls, yes. Deacon was a stray. He lived as a community dog for 3 years in West Virginia. And a church would feed him and the kids loved him. And then they thought he had found a home, and that really wasn't true. And someone found him all kind of bloodied in an abandoned house with his companion dog. And anyway, long story short, he is now living in Washington, D.C. I like to play a game with my own dogs called We Don't Need No Stinkin' Leashes. I am not advocating this so you can walk your dogs off leash. I know that's a hot topic, and unleashed dogs are very scary for dogs that are in leash, but this can be used on your own property, in places where dogs are allowed to be off leash. All we're doing is with this, and you can see I'm working on recall, but you can work on touch, the little black dress behavior. You could work on focus, whatever you wanted to work on. And the idea is the leash sometimes is on, sometimes is off, sometimes they're dragging it. It just doesn't mean anything. So your dogs get the idea of leash comes off, I don't need to bolt. Whoops. So we'll see if this can load. Oh no, don't you have to go back and quit out of this again? Lord, I'm so sorry. Let me go do that again. Sorry. I'm trying to exit my full screen here. There. Seems like when I go to the presenter view, oops, no, I've skipped a bunch. Here we go. So here's my dog Lola, a Pekingese mix. We're working on recall. You can see she's dragging her leash. She could care less if the leash is on. It doesn't affect her choice in coming to me. So I feel like playing games, the we don't need no stinking leash game, is really fun for dogs. So the idea is you're going to have the leash on sometimes. You're going to drop the leash, take the leash off only if it's safe to take the leash off, and work on something, whether it be touch, the little black dress behavior, watch me, which is looking at you, walking next to you, whatever. It's just you're kind of saying, hey, the leash doesn't mean when it's off, bolt. So another game we play a lot of, and believe me, there are tons of games out there. I just picked a few that we use quite a bit. So here you can see that Peyton is actually doing a combination. She's asking Tip, who is an 8-year-old beagle that was having a very hard time adjusting to city life. He came from a very rural area. And so this is DC, and there are a lot of noises and sirens. So let me play it again.
Ready?
So she asked him to touch, and then she throws a piece of food. And then she's throwing the food and asking him to go find it. And she's getting a couple reps of touch in there. So what's happening is that you probably can't hear on this video. There are traffic noises, airplane noises. He was really cowering and not wanting to go for walks. So we found an open space and kind of used a long leash, and we dropped it and Peyton started playing the game here. And we're gonna check back on some of these dogs as the presentation goes.
Find it!
So this is advanced Find It. I don't know if you can see it. I'll play it again. I tossed a handful of food between the Liriope, and I'm just asking my dogs to scent it, or these are actually client dogs. And here, I'll play it again. You can maybe see me toss it. Oh, there we go. Toss a handful. It's good to let them kind of search and scent and use their brain power for scenting. Remember, back with Gregory Burns, one of the things about our brain structure that's different from dogs is that they have this tremendous olfactory system. So Find It, we were using with Tip, to just help him relax. This was just more of a game here. I was just trying to occupy these two teenagers. So Simply Settled game.
Keep going.
This is sort of like when you move around, you're excited, and you can kind of modulate the game. It doesn't have to be super exciting at first.
Nice.
So what we're doing here, it can build resiliency in a dog, meaning that in exciting situations, he can learn to settle. And again, I don't really care about, personally, about the sit. I don't think it's always comfortable for dogs to sit. It could be wet, it could be cold, they could be, I don't know, I know some teenage dogs that it seems like certain growth spurts, it's awkward to sit. And older dogs sometimes don't like it, the repetitive motion.
Yeah.
So here is
Keep going.
one of our clients, Dee, and she's kind of being excited. And she's getting her dog to come to
Nice.
her. And we started rewarding and reinforcing the, just standing. This dog kind of was just offering sits. We weren't cueing the dog to sit. And you can amp up the game by like waving your hands. You can make the game less arousing by just kind of walking. You really can build it around your dog and then, of course, raise the criteria a little bit. Four Corners game. We use it to help with leash walking skills. Again, you can use it to really focus on any behavior you're trying to build. You can use it, again, we use a lot of games in counter conditioning and desensitization, meaning we'll play these games at a distance, a comfortable distance, for the dog around triggers. So let me just show you this game and then we can talk about it.
For goes, there are a couple of things that were really effective for Georgie that worked. One of them was actually something I didn't go over specifically, which was your pace changing. So Jamie and Georgie moved a little bit faster to that last cone, and they were far more together as a team because of that light excitement to that next cone. So that's another way to gain attention.
So here,
good. Now move together to that next cone.
They're working on a loose leash.
Good. Get that check-in.
Wait, what?
Now
So
the
each
next
cone we're trying to reinforce.
Okay, remember that your choice cone's coming up, so get that check-in here.
So again, she was working on
Good. Final cone. Okay, now with the
Loose
display, choose a random cone to go to after the check-in.
So we kind of go around it a square, and then when you get to the fourth corner or the fourth cone, you can run, jog, walk fast, and you just pick a random cone. So your dog kind of learns, oh, we're working on loose leash. Oh, wait, we're at the last cone. Where are we going to go? And it builds a little bit of excitement, and it can be a really fun thing for both you and your dog. Oh, let me just see. I wanted to see if I wanted to say.
There are a couple of things that were really effective for
Nope, that's good. I'm good on that. Okay, 1, 2, 3 game. So a lot of us know that these pattern games, like the 1, 2, 3, are from Leslie McDevitt's great book series, Controlled Unleashed. And it looks like I'm gonna have to exit out again. I'm so sorry. Oops. And I will see if I can go back and present. So here's just a simple game. I love this game.
Should we stop?
And you can see Leslie McDevitt do it. I think she's got YouTube's videos. You can get her books. All we're doing here is Latte's owner is just walking, saying 1, 2, 3.
Should we stop after the 3?
Yeah. He's clicking at 3 and feeding. You don't even have to click or mark with a verbal marker, you can simply just say 1, 2, 3 and feed. So we used this game after we taught Latte on the last block home. She would start to pull and go crazy, like, no, I just want to get home, which is typical for a lot of puppies. And this just slowed her down. We played the game. And what we did was prevent her from practicing pulling, right? Because we don't want her to get good at that. So easy peasy. 1, 2, 3. So here's Ruthie again.
1, 2, 3.
And Ruthie gets really distracted, like any puppy does, on the end of walks. So we used it here for when Ruthie had to leave the exciting outdoors and go back inside. So what's really fun about this is 1, 2 gets their attention, and 3 is like, wow, I know what's going to happen. It's really predictable. So it's so easy to learn, and this can really help you navigate through tight spaces. So here it is again. Here's Sheldon, one of my favorite all-time clients. He's probably late 80s.
Yeah.
And his
So
dog,
make 1, 2 really exciting, like a little happier tone.
2, 3. Twyla.
And say 3 right before you feed her. There.
Twyla would totally ignore Sheldon on walks.
2, 3.
So Sheldon's really amping up his game
great.
here and just making this really exciting. And Twyla got so into it.
3.
But I give Sheldon a lot of credit for
Now
making
she's getting it. You're all right?
Yeah, he almost fell. That was not good. So you can see how Twyla's like, yeah,
3.
I can pay attention to you and walk with
Hey,
you.
you're doing great making that exciting.
1, 2, 3.
Wow, Sheldon really amped it up and just got on his game, and Twyla was like, whoa, Dad, this is a lot of fun. Find Me. This is another one of Leslie McDevitt's pattern games. And all we do is put a piece of food in front of the dog, and we're going to capture or mark that shoulder turn. And this can be so useful, especially living in the city. Whoops. Oh, sorry. Somehow what happened here? Sorry. Let me go back. There we go. I'm going to try to hit the present button again because I can tell the video's stalled. Oh, no. All right. I got to go through all my presentation here. Let me, sorry. So let's go back to the turn game. Sorry, can you tell it's the first time I've used this program too? Blah. All right. Oh, no, let me just exit and go back and do this. Here we go. We call it the, oops, Find Me. Oh. Oh no, I don't know why this is doing this. All right, let me escape. I'm so sorry. So all the owner is doing is putting a treat or piece of food in
Couple
front of
more
the dog.
times.
And she is marking for the dog turning to her. And you can call it Find Me. If you played the Find It game, the Find Me might not be the best cue. You can call it Turn, but this becomes really useful and it's just fun to play, especially if you're in a tight space and you're waiting, you can play it like you're waiting to get inside the vet or whatever. It's good practice.
So he looks at you, you're gonna click, and
So this
proceed
is
to the next plate
the
to drop
plate
that treat.
game.
He eats the treat, you look at you, click, proceed to the next plate to drop that treat.
So here we go with Kobe. Every time, so Christina explained the game really well. You are just putting a piece of food
So
on a
he
plate.
looks at you, you're gonna click, and proceed to the next plate to drop that treat. He eats the treat, you look at you, click, proceed to the next plate to drop that treat.
So Kobe's mom drops the treat. Kobe looks at his mom. His looking at his mom makes her walk to the next plate and drop the treat. So this is a good game to practice the skill of checking in with you. I don't think our dogs have to be staring at us the whole time out on a walk, but it's nice to have a check-in.
Let's go.
Here's the plate game again.
And this
Yeah.
is to calm him down and
So Chewy looks up at his teenager or tween, and the game continues. So this is a
Let's
great
go.
game for
Yeah.
to calm him down
children
and,
to play rather than roughhousing with dogs.
or for the kids, for the
It's a predictable game. Like all these games have predictable outcomes. I like the plate game a lot. So there's also a book called Canine Play Behavior, and I will butcher this woman's name, Twofer. Wrote it in 2013. And it's all about different types of play and like dog-dog play. But her point is that play gives you things to do together, but it also can kind of push the boundaries a little bit and grow together. So that's another reason why I love using it for dogs and some of their anxieties. So here's an example of that children can kind of be scary and unpredictable to dogs. Oh no. So I'm using the plate game here with Lola. So here are kids moving around, doing crazy stuff. So the parents were quite upset because Lola totally freaked out when she met a toddler, like barking, lunging, snarling. They played this game for 3 weeks or so before I met them. They did not go to this, like a school or anything like this. They played in their yard, their porch, backyard, whatever. So there were some distractions. You wouldn't really know that she was upset by the movement of these kids. She's so focused on playing the game. Yet what's happening here is she knows all the kids are there. She sees the movement, but she's going back to this predictable game, right? So we just successfully etched some repetitions of these triggers in her brain, but we etched them in a positive way. I think that's what's happening, at least. Okay, so problem solving games advised in behavioral therapy for fearful dogs. Okay, So we see a lot of fearful dogs at Dog Latin. We work with a lot of rescues, but equally see fear in breeder dogs too. So here's a great study that sometimes playing games can help them with problem solving and increase their self-confidence. And it's important that we be there, like be present, but it's also, according to the study, helpful to let the dogs kind of engage in the problem solving task without feeling stress or too much guidance from us. So here we're using the plate game, again, one of my favorite games, in class with a dog that has some fear
Guys, I have to
issues.
say, this is really, really good control from all of your dogs. This is really distracting, so they're all doing great. Billy. You're all doing good. Billy. Bella. Billy. Okay.
So Billy was having a hard time navigating the room, not wanting to come out of her pod. And so playing this game
She's like, yeah.
and letting her go at her own pace. And we even dropped the leash to take any kind of pressure off of her. There was no, everybody was instructed in the class to kind of keep their dogs occupied. There was no risk of her like running away. I'm just going to play that again because I thought this was so fantastic for Billy. I mean, this built her confidence so much.
Guys, I have to say, this is really, really good control from all of your dogs. This is really distracting.
So
they're all
again,
doing
dropping
great.
her mom's dropping the treat. Billy kind of orients to her mom. We're not even looking for eye contact necessarily here.
Billy. Okay. Good.
And the important part of the plate
Really
game
good.
is the dog gets to set the pace of the game. It's not about them just constantly looking at you. The idea is for some dogs that they take in the environment, right? They look at distractions, they look at possible triggers, but they're like, oh, cool. Okay, no big deal. I can go back and play this predictable game. So the mama of all the pattern games are the relaxation exercises that were devised by Dr. Karen Overall in the late 90s. Really, all the dog has to do, we should kind of name it, hey, is it mom or dad cute? Because all we're doing is letting them look at things in the environment while mom and dad do weird, air quote, weird things. And so what's happening is a lot here. We're having that time with them. We're making it easy. All Hugo has to do is learn to sit or lie down on a mat. Don't really care. They learn to lie down really quickly because all they have to do is look at you doing some weird things. Like some of the relaxation exercises, it's a 15-unit protocol. And I like to do each unit for about 4 or 5 days before moving on, because we want to make it super easy, because the game gets a little harder, like you leaving the room, doorbell ringing, all that kind of stuff in later units. But here's an example of one of the oh gosh, I have to go down. Earlier units. So he's not lying down yet. Oh, there he goes.
Okay, clap hands for 5 seconds.
So there's a bunch of little tasks that you do.
Good.
And so
Oh, this is
at
great
this
time.
point,
Touch your toes for 10 seconds. No, I can.
so they're debating whether Hugo's owners, if they can actually touch their toes. He's like, that is weird. So you can see how that movement even was a little exciting for him. Anyway, there's a series of tasks. These take about 5 minutes or less to do at a session, and sometimes you're kind of jogging around the room, clapping. It all gets progressively more distracting, and he's learning,
Good.
I don't know what's happening. I just chill on a
Oh, this is
mat.
great time. Touch
And
your toes for
well, I'm
10
happy to
seconds.
share our version of
I
Dr. Overall's relaxation exercises with you. I think it's funny because he's like, what? Get up, mother. That looks like, so you can see it was a little like, I don't know what's happening here. But these exercises, we use them with dogs that show some anxiety and fear, and it's great. And again, we're going to show you some of real life situations, how these games have helped. Again, I'm going to throw in a little science here. There was a study not too long ago, 2016, by Lena Roth, and she took 59 German Shepherds, and they took cortisol samples, hair samples, and measured the cortisol of the dogs. And there were 3 types of German Shepherds, not breed types, but purposes. So there were competition dogs, there were companion dogs, and there were working dogs. Working dogs meaning police. And they found the dogs who had the lowest stress levels were dogs that had a lot of play and lots of rewards from their owners. The most stressed dogs were the competition dogs after the season was over, and they think it may be due to like restlessness or that becomes very predictable, and now their life is totally different off season, and that can be stressful for dogs. But I thought that was really interesting that a lot of play and lots of rewards from their owners were the less stressed dogs. And so part of the study was all about the pleasant connection. And I think that goes back to Schultz's dopamine studies, that there is a lot happening in the brain, a lot of the anticipation and how it's solidifying learning in dogs. And so I think she's going to investigate further. They're going to start to measure, they might already be doing this, the stress level of the owners and comparing it with the stress level of the dogs, which should be fascinating. Oops, going backwards again. All right, so we went over some of the games. Again, we're just kind of the tip of the iceberg on games. I wanted to show you some of the most populars and different ways we use them, and you can make up games too, but I wanted to show you how playing some of those games, and we took some of the dogs and put them in, real world situations. And so before I talk about this, I was reading a book called Unwinding Anxiety. It's about human anxiety. And of course, a great quote in there, the only way to change a habit is to update its reward value. And it's so true that, making training fun and reward-based really helps learning. And so in the book, Dr. Brewer refers to habit loops in people, like what is the trigger, what's the behavior, what's the consequence. We kind of know that from training. But what he's pointing out is that we know, okay, our boss lays on a bunch of work, we get stressed, we start overeating. We can be kind of mindful and decide, yeah, next time that happens, I'm going to try an alternative behavior. Who knows if dogs have any kind of mindfulness? That might be, maybe we'll get there. However, my point of this was thinking, we got to be our dog's mindfulness. Like, we have to kind of intervene and try to stop, because they're in lockdown. We hold the cards to everything, all their resources. And I just wanted to make one other point. There's a old bad science called the Yerkes-Dodson law in 1908, based on 2 Harvard researchers, that it was, I don't know what Japanese dancing mice are, but that's what the study was. And what was gleaned from that, a little anxiety is good for performance. And I feel like I have heard that my entire life. And of according to Dr. Brewer, there's no evidence that supports that a little anxiety helps performance. And I think that gets to be bad science, sort of like what we've dealt with in the dog world, the whole dominance theory. That's been bad science that has stuck around forever. And so I think this, like, a little anxiety is good for us, helps your performance. He says there's no research backing that up. And so he also talks about the bigger, better offer. And we want to try to reinforce, and we know this in dog training, reinforce an alternative behavior to the behavior, the unwanted behavior. So this is Riley. He lives with other dogs, and he's a very sweet dog, but he can get everybody stirred up at the door. So I'm going to play it again because I just want you to look at his face. I should have moved my type. He's like, yeah, off the mat. So what we're doing here is doing a little mat training, and we are teaching him kind of a stationing behavior, like that's a good place to be. So we're trying to make that the bigger, better offer than going crazy at the door. And he's doing really well. So here's a behavior, back to the we don't need no stinking leashes. This is one of my dogs, Frankie. We're at a big field, and the rest of us, I have 5 dogs. The 4 dogs and I were waiting for Frankie, so I gave a recall cue. And this is her coming across the field, leash dragging, like, doesn't matter. I'm off leash. I could go anywhere, but I decide to come back to you because we have played this game. So I was pretty proud of her. She was only about 1.5 years old at that time. And you can see the other dogs. They're like, okay, anytime, Frankie. So real life, we use that game. So here's the turn or find me cue. Sasha has some reactivity, meaning she will bark or lunge at triggers. There's 2 triggers coming. You will see there's a stroller and another dog. Her owner asked her to turn. She did. She was able to get Sasha's attention. And now we're kind of playing a version of another game called Look at That. So there was the cue. Remember, this was the game that we placed a piece of food and just clicked for the dog's shoulder turning to us. So because Sasha learned the turn cue, she was able to keep Sasha under threshold and looking at this, where sometimes if a dog, if you can't kind of break that looking at something for more than 3 seconds, there's a good chance they may react in a bad way. So here, this was built by the With Me game. I had turned, when I met these 2 shepherds, they had learned to ignore come. Now we can walk off leash. Again, I'm not advocating walking off leash in public. This is actually their property. And the owners had really wanted them to be able to walk off leash. They're just like, yeah. But we did it with me. I can actually hide in the woods or behind trees and cue them, and they come to us, and they actually will now stay with me. I mean, I let them get ahead or a little bit behind me, but not too far. But they have an excellent recall cue. So here's Tip again. He was the 8-year-old beagle with some anxiety about moving to the city after living in the country. We had played the plate game, or Peyton played the plate game with him, and Find It and some other games. And look at him now walking through. Whoops, oops, I'm doing the wrong thing. So here he is, just on a walk now. Oh, please play. All right, let me escape And do my presenter thing again. I'm so sorry. There he is. It's like I'm walking through the city and you can hear like
Good tip. Look at
airplane.
that wiggle.
Yeah, he's all wiggly. So yeah, these games are really paying off. Here we played the plate game with Katsu. You can see us. We're out on at the Navy Yard in DC. And we had just finished a couple rounds of the plate game when I'll show you a plate again. This dog's walking by. Dogs work his trigger before. Whoa, that's a head whip, man. That's some good attention on his owner. So kudos to Katsu's parents for practicing. Let's see. Oh, this is a fun one. I did it. This is, we built this on the plate game. Twinkle, she had to go to London. I was flying to London, quite the life, last fall. And so instead of using plates, I use little sticky notes and we put them around the crate or the travel crate, then through the travel crate. So again, I'll play it. She just thought it was the best. So in is her cue for the.
Good girl.
Yeah. And they had a very successful trip to London.
Here we are. Are you ready? Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So here's
Here we
Hugo
go.
again.
Here we go now.
He has some handling issues and he had a total meltdown at the vet at like 5 months old where they left the room and shut the door and made the owners come in because he was, I guess they described him as wild and showing some aggression. So we had to get this muzzle behavior going before our next vet visit. And so you can see by playing touch, or what I call the little black dress behavior.
Here we are. Are you ready?
He
Okay.
touches the muzzle.
Here we
That's
go.
his start button.
Here we go
When
now.
he touches the muzzle, the brush, it means, okay, I'm ready. Let's play the game. And this game is just putting treats through the muzzle. So his mom and dad can fasten it. And we were very successful in getting all his vaccinations done. Oh, we played the Twofer game. Here is a cookie that you saw earlier. I started playing the Twofer game with them as puppies, them meaning Cookie's brother is Ninja. So we have Cookie and Ninja. That's sort of the beauty of letting children name dogs. So let's.
Puppies, come!
Sorry, my voice is so shrill.
This way, you're going the wrong way. Yes, good dogs. Yeah.
So here they are as puppies. I let them get distracted and then cued their recall. And they were about 3 months old at that time. So here they are. This was just a week or 2 weeks ago, maybe. They're about 6.5 months old now. Oh gosh, sorry. Here we go. Oh. All right, I think I have to escape. Go back to the presenter view. Sorry, oh no, we're not ready for that yet. So here they are playing.
Puppies, come!
Pretty great response time there.
Nice. So good, guys.
And again, owners wanted a really good recall. They have a big property and these guys love playing the
Do
Twofer
the
game.
jumping jack.
So the mama of the pattern games, relaxation exercise. Here's a girl, grade school, whose dog Dewey was having a little bit of an issue chasing her and nipping at her. And we played the relaxation games. I'll play it again.
Do the jumping jack.
She asked Dewey for a weight.
Click.
And then she's doing jumping jacks. And because they practiced the relaxation exercises, he's like, I got this. I can watch you do whatever you're doing. So we're at the last part of the presentation, and I want to talk about fast play versus slow play. I saw a lecture by Dr. Amber Batson in 2018 in Manchester, England. And this presentation really stuck with me. And so I started kind of following her and some of the European trainers that I met there. And the last few years, there's been a movement called the slow dog movement, just like the slow food movement. And you can find out more about it at slowdogmovement.org. And you can also look at the pet dog trainers of Europe. A lot of them have some ideas about slow movement, but Dr. Batson, she's not talking about like eliminating fast play like fetch or whatever you like to do. It's just about trying to make it a little shorter and also have some calm activities. And there are a lot of different things we can do with calm activities with our dogs. And I want to talk a little bit too about what's happening in the brain in different aspects of fast and slow play. And so fast play increases those brain chemicals of dopamine, noradrenaline, and eventually cortisol, and which we can walk out of our door with our front door with our dogs, and some of that, the adrenaline may start to happen. It's an immediate response because they're kind of happy and good. And so, but what can happen with too much fast play is that it can start that kind of addiction to that thrill, or it can be a little scary. That arousal, chemical arousal of that's due to the adrenaline and noradrenaline happens. And she's kind of asking, like, do we really want to set our dogs up to keep practicing that? Do we want those pathways to their brain to get wider? And she also makes a really good point that fast play reduces blood sugar, which then affects the prefrontal cortex, which can affect decision making. Whoops. So here is some alternatives to fast play. So this is what I like to call, and other dog trainers call a sniffari.
And he loves eating grass.
He was lucky. He was rescued off the streets of Philadelphia. They're working with their veterinarian about some maybe possible medications, but he was not being walked because he would just pull, bark, and do other behavior when he was triggered by bikes, people. I mean, they live right in a busy area. So I'm actually using a great leash there. It's the 8-foot 8-way leash from Boldly Design, which can really give you a lot of control. But anyway, we started just implementing these sniffaris for him. So he had some sort of outlet, and his owners reported he was calmer. I still think there's probably going to be discussion with their veterinarian about medication or their vet behaviorist. But right now it's proving to really help him. open spaces. So I know you're thinking like, okay, is this really a game? But if you think about it, we play solitaire, we play crossword puzzles, and they're kind of, a very solitary game. So I think maybe we should look at it in that light. So just even, whoops, I wanted to play the video, not move ahead. So here, just letting your dogs, my goodness, walk through open spaces and sniff and, oh yes, sniff and scent. Yikes, can be, there we go. So the Sheltie here is a dog I adopted during COVID. He so needs this quiet scenting, like in an open field, strengthened by we don't need no stinking leashes. He needs it. He's been diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, as well as some generalized anxiety. So being able to do this without a lot of triggers is a great calming exercise. So here's some what I call field trips. It's just changing your route. If you always walk the same way, go a different way. There's tons of different smells. Investigate a neighbor's yard, go down a stinky alley, mix it up. So here, Dr. Batson and other research have shown that the arousal chemicals in the brain are the dopamine, the glutamate, the noradrenaline, and in the bloodstream, it's the adrenaline and cortisol. We all kind of know what adrenaline and cortisol are. And then calmness chemicals, when they're doing more of the slow play in the brain, it's the GABA, it's GABA and serotonin. And in the bloodstream, there's less adrenaline and less cortisol. So I know from my own dogs, I'm more a slow play person. Those are the behaviors I want them to practice, because as Dr. Batson points out here, that the other problem with fast play is the long-term potential of strengthening of those pathways. So any behavior your dog is doing, whether you want that behavior or not, those pathways to the brain are being made. So we have to think, do we want those pathways to be strengthened, or do we want to try to substitute some other behaviors? And whoops, I put in this picture because I get that a lot of times we like our dogs to play with other dogs. However, and again, this is a snapshot, but even from the snapshot of this dog and how aroused he looks, he is showing all his teeth. His body looks pretty stiff. I can say I do not want my dog to be practicing that behavior. And you have to think about it in these terms, that these pathways to the brain, do they become trails? Do they become roads? Do they become major arteries? Because every time your dog is doing that behavior, that pathway to the brain just got stronger. So again, another reason to consider some slow play. Slow play can be self-exploration. You've probably heard of if you're a trainer, Turid Rugas, she actually has uses a lot of just natural activities to solve dog behavior problems. So here we're just along the Potomac River on the Virginia side. And again, just some self-exploration, letting them swim, sniff, because it's, what dogs were kind of meant to do. So I think this is a great term. This is, forest bathing. No swimsuit required. So it's based on a Japanese principle, and there's actually a book for dogs about it by Nadine Mazzola. And if you're interested, it's really just about quiet, calm walking. Maybe you're taking in, we're using different senses. So that's why I wanted to go back Earlier in the presentation, we talked about their sense of smell. Here we go. And so forest bathing can just mean quiet walking. You might be observing the beautiful bark on the trees and the quiet. Well, it's not so quiet because this was taken during the height of the cicada season. But yeah, so it's more meditative than actual bathing, of course, but it can be very relaxing. Sensory enjoyment, letting dogs just roll around in stinky stuff. So this is my dog Lola. I don't know what it is, but she is just like, that is some good stuff. And so my dog Frankie sees Lola do it. Yeah, so couldn't wait to get and do some rolling around. Traversing, walking on different surfaces, sensing, movement, water, all that. Just getting back to kind of like the basics and letting dogs be dogs. Treasure Trove is a great game. Again, you can hear all the cicadas. They were so loud here this summer. They come every 17 years. And it's crazy time. But I just fill boxes, Amazon, these are my Amazon boxes. I put kibble or treats, I scatter them around the yard, and my dogs don't fight over resources. If they did, I'd have them do it individually. They just go out and they find the boxes and they eat and they sniff around. It's a lot of great scenting opportunities. And basically the slow dog movement is like, just do some activities with your dog. Sit on a park bench, watch the world go by. Of course, Frankie loves to help me garden because it means she can eat dirt. So again, I just wanted to say you can find our handouts for Decompress for Success, Upgrade to First Class, Find Your Moment of Yes. And I think we're going to be ready for some questions if I can. Oh yeah, social media, you can find us there. You can see some of these. And just before questions, I wanted to quickly acknowledge some of the inspiration behind this presentation and some of the people I find fascinating. Dr. Amber Batson, she is in the UK and she's a veterinarian and behaviorist. I don't think she's a vet behaviorist though. I could be wrong. Oops, there's a big typo there. Wolfram Schultz, he's a neuroscience, German neuroscientist, and it's his research that was groundbreaking on the whole dopamine and what's happening in the brain and where scientists were seeing dopamine appear in the brain. Leslie McDevitt, a lot of the pattern games, 1, 2, 3, plate games. She has a great series of books, Controlled on Leash. Highly recommend them. Ken Ramirez, he heads Karen Pryor Academy for professional dog training. I went through that in 2010. He's also written some great books. His latest book, The Eye of the Trainer. Kay Lawrence, she's a UK trainer, life or dog person coach. I find her fascinating. And I also like some of the games from the Tom Mitchell and Laura Langman. They're authors of a book called There's a Game for That. And I have to say thanks to the Pet Dog Trainers of Europe for a lot of the slow movement information, as well as the Certification Council of Professional Dog Trainers, where I'm also a board member and proud of that. And some of the authors, Churid Rugas, she has a great book called Talking Terms with Dogs. I highly recommend that. Lily Chin, fabulous illustrator and author. Her latest book is Doggy Language. She helped Dog Latin with our infographics. Lori Luck from Karen Pryor Academy was my teacher and just such a great mentor. And of course, my former boss, who is now retired from her veterinary behavior clinic, Dr. Kathy Meyer. And I think with that, we're ready for questions. So you can always, if you have questions, contact us directly at info@doglatindogtraining.com, or share a game with us. We'd love that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oops.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that, Beth. Obviously a ton of information. Folks, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. We do have a couple for you that have been waiting in here. One was about the circle of touch game. Someone asked, is the dog retrieving a treat? Is the dog receiving a treat for every target in the circle of touch game?
In that video, yes, because the dog had just learned that game. I mean, that game was about 2 minutes old at the time. As a dog gets really good at the game, I still like to reinforce. I will start to substitute reinforcement depending on the dog, which could be play, it could be extra praise. It's really just finding out. But in learning the game, I would suggest using some food, because in that case too, they had decided they were going to use this touch as a recall cue too. But again, there was a pesky puppy just trying to annoy the heck out, not trying, but just annoying the heck out of this little dog. So it was a great way to kind of have that trigger there and be learning something at the same time.
Awesome. So someone else said, the plate game seems awesome, but do you ever have dogs who decide the plate is a toy? Wondering if I should start with tape on tile. What do you do with dogs who like to carry things around?
Yeah, so that can be a problem, and it can be a problem if the dog is a resource guarder, right? So I have done that game. I played it with a red-bone coonhound who, great dog, but he loves to resource guard. So we were like, yeah, I think we better put a plate on the ground. So what I did there, we were doing it outside. I used chalk and I just kind of drew circles. Sometimes outside, just having some sort of visual can help them locate the treat, right? I've also used, like with Twinkle, the little palm that you saw go in the travel crate, we use this little Post-it notes for that. So you could also try that.
Awesome. I'll give it another quick second. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So quick reminders. One is that this is being recorded. I will send out the link to you tomorrow, just as soon as YouTube cooperates and lets me post it. If you are not familiar with Every Dog Austin, please check us out, everydogaustin.org. We do offer training sessions. We have classes launching next week, which is really exciting. If you know puppy parents or folks who would like to do a basic manners class, we're doing those things. And if you are able to make a donation, we would super appreciate that. You can also buy t-shirts on the website. They say dog training is for everyone, because we really believe that pretty strongly. So please feel free to spread the word and share us around with your friends. And with that, thank you so much again, Beth. I really appreciate you being here. This was so fun.
And I did send you the PDF.
Yes, I will make sure that that goes out to everybody as well, a PDF that goes along with this. So if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with Beth. If you have other questions, please let us know. And thank you guys so much for coming out on a Tuesday night. Thanks for spending it with us.
Yeah, thank you, Miranda. It was such a pleasure doing this for Every Dog Austin, and I hope it just got people thinking how playing can really activate that reward system and get some behaviors going in a fun way for everybody.
Yeah, so everyone go home and play a game with your dog. Okay,
Exactly.
have a good night. Bye.
Thanks.